I'll make sure to be done at like 9:27 or something. I imagine you've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, we're interviewing somebody, that's all.
Oh, okay. Very fun. Okay, let me set that off. And I should send the link. All right, we'll have to wait a few minutes before beginning because I need to send the link to the Discord and get people to come.
No rush at all.
All right. And then I also need to send it to my mom because she was like, "You're interviewing a CEO? Wow." As a college undergrad, you're really getting up there. I have Ashish and Mohit doing a product demo tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I might need you to explain what Instabase is for 1 or 2 minutes before that. But you've done this before, right?
I've done this before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If you are joining us live on YouTube, thank you so much for coming. We're going to be starting in just a couple minutes because I want to wait for people to get here.
That's awesome. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to come and speak with our attendees today.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, I forgot. Where are my questions? Okay. Alrighty, it seems like people are trickling in, so I can go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Thank you again for attending HackTX, and thank you so much for coming to our speaker series. Today, we are hearing from Anant Bhardwaj. He is the founder and CEO of Instabase, which, if you haven't already heard, is our title sponsor here at HackTexas. So we thank him and his team for their support. Anant, how are you doing today?
All good. How are you?
Great. Thank you for asking. The first thing that I wanted to ask you is, where is this picture from? Because it was sent to me by the Instabase representative, and you look a lot different now than whenever this was taken.
I think there is a basically hallway at MIT on the 9th floor at MIT CSAIL where people go and brew coffee. So this is the time when I think I was making coffee when somebody took this picture. So it's
how long ago was this?
2013. 2013, yeah, it's 2013.
Wow. Yeah, so just when Instabase was starting out. You've certainly come a long way since then.
No, that's 2 years before Instabase started.
Oh, really?
It's like 7 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, for those of our viewers that, let me stop sharing real quick. Yes, for those of our viewers that don't already know, would you mind taking just a quick minute or two to explain what Instabase is and what you have built?
So the idea of Instabase basically comes as this distributed operating system that will fundamentally power how business applications are built. If you look at the way sort of like computing is going today, you can broadly categorize computing into 3 major sort of categories. First one I call lifestyle computing. It's the computing that helps you run computers for your lifestyle stuff. Like applications that would fit into this category are like your camera and GPS, music, maps, and all that. And that would be powered by Android, iOS. So Google and Apple are primarily going to win this area. And I think that's where the next decade would move to. The second computing, I call this work computing. It's a computer that you use at work. And primarily operating system, there is Windows and Mac, and you need desktop monitors and all that. The applications that you use is like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. And the third major sort of like distribution channel on desktop is browser. and that would continue to be the trend. So you will use Windows, Mac, and then browser, which is Chrome. But there is this third class of computing, and I call it operational computing, is how do businesses run their applications? Like example is like, how do you run a hospital? How do you run a bank? How do you run trade? How do you run taxes? How do you run immigration? And there's no operating system for that. There is like the way people do this is like they will set up a data center, they will have developers write a lot of code, assemble a bunch of libraries and build this. And Instabase's goal is to basically create an operating system for that third class of computing, which I think would significantly change how sort of people and businesses build applications in over the next few decades.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Instabase is a fantastic platform, guys. Yeah, definitely the best way to learn about it, I think, is to see it. So make sure you attend our product demo at 9 a.m. tomorrow. But moving on to our first real question. I'm sure you get this question a lot, but how did you get the idea for Instabase when you were starting 5 years ago? And tell us a little bit about your origin story as its founder CEO.
Yeah. So basically, I did my undergrad in India and then worked there for a couple of years. And I wanted to start a company there. And then, as a undergrad, you basically read about where do all the companies start.
Mm-hmm.
And Stanford was one of the schools where a lot of the companies were starting from at that time. And I was like, okay, I need to go there. So I basically applied to a bunch of schools. Luckily, I got at Stanford. So I moved there for doing masters. And but I had no idea of doing a company, and I'm like, I wasted my 2 years. I spent some time interning at Google or something, and then I was like, I still don't know what to do. So I basically applied for PhD and moved to MIT. And the goal of moving to MIT was not to like academically do research, but to figure out what I want to do with my life. So I basically flirted around with a number of different projects, and one of the project was called Data Hub. And the whole idea of Data Hub is you basically take like data which could be in number of different systems and how you can build an application that can be built sort of like independent of the underlying system. Like you're not writing for MapReduce or Spark or databases or something. You abstract all of those things with some abstraction. We call that Data Hub, which gave a central hub for building applications for any kind of platforms or systems. And the idea is like, this looks so similar to OS. What operating system does is it abstracts all of the core concept of computing, memory, devices, and all that stuff, and you can write an application. And so Instabase came from this basic idea because we saw that at MIT, people were building more and more data applications on our Data Hubs platform rather than individually for each of those systems. So we really didn't know what we wanted to build. Only thing we knew when we started was like, we wanted to build an operating system. And in fact, my VC pitch when I dropped out was like, hey, we wanted to build an operating system for the internet, which nobody understood at that time. But people still paid money. And I think there is so much money out there in the Valley. I mean, in general, if you sound smart, people would pay some money. So that's kind of the origin. So yeah, there's a lot of luck, a lot of luck.
Oh, come on. It was all skill. You knew what to say. That's how you got that money. Oh, fantastic, guys. All right, moving on. I'm sure you also get this question a lot. What do you think is the hardest part about being a founder and CEO, particularly one that you were not expecting when you first decided, hey, I'm going to make Data Hub, I'm going to make Instabase?
Yeah. So this job changes every year. So when you start a company, it's basically all of like building the product, making sure that some customers like different stages. When you drop out first, how do you raise money? That's one of the hard part. I got lucky, but basically a lot of time people struggle, and this is not hard at all. I mean, you just need like a good pitch that serves a good vision, and that's all you need. But that is the first stage that you have to cross. Second one is building product. How do you recruit engineers? Because you don't have a lot of money. You might have raised 3, 4, 5 million, but Silicon Valley is very expensive. Everybody's getting like a lot of
Yeah.
offers like 200, 250K a year. And how do you hire really, really great people? Because you need like a team of 4 or 5 people to build something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second hard part. Once you sort of like clear that, then the third hard part is how do you go and make somebody buy your product or make somebody use your product? So like if you're in consumers, like how do you make millions of users use your product? If you're in enterprises, how do you get big customers buy your product and pay money? Once you have done all this, then the hardest part becomes sort of management, and which is you learn two things during this journey. One is things about business, and the second one is things about people. And over the longer period, if I look at like last 5 years or so, I think I have learned a lot more about people than about business. And the reason why is like once you go beyond like 15 people or so, it's just all about like how do you leverage yourself by hiring great people, retaining them, keeping them, giving them the environment so that they can do the best work of their life, and basically all of those. So at different stages there are different kind of hard work that you have to deal with. In longer run, it's just about management of very, very smart people who are much smarter than you, and making them keeping them all motivated to do the work that is your vision. And that's a job of privilege, but at the same time it's a hard job, which is like how do you sort of like make people who are much, much, much smarter than you sort of like take a long term view on a vision that you have. That's one of the hardest things.
Yeah, yeah, great. I actually wanted to follow up a bit on that question, because you are in downtown San Francisco, probably the most competitive place for technology anywhere. So, what strategies does Instabase employ in order to make sure that you guys are hiring the best people and competing well in the labor market?
Yeah, two things. First of all, keep the hiring bar very, very high. We have
Hmm.
one of the value called expect excellence in each other. And number two, pay high. Like at the end, like if you really want to recruit and retain the best people, you have to be competitive with the market. Like you can't expect, like a lot of companies try to like, hey, we are still going to pay you like half the money Facebook page, and so expect like people to, because eventually it's over the period of time. Like if somebody's spending 10 years of their life at a particular company, they expect to be well paid. Eventually the math has to work, the economics has to work. So our strategy has always been that pay on the 90 percentile, hire the best people, keep the recruiting bar very, very high, but at the same time, always be in the top paying company. And that helps. We never try to sort of like, we have a value of frugality, but the frugality value is not in compensation. Compensation, we always try to be like on the highest end.
Yeah,
Our frugality value is more like if you need to hire, you know, 5 people, why would you hire like 10? So rather than
yeah.
hiring like 20 mediocre, hire 5 excellent and pay them well.
Mhm.
And that has helped us. So that's number one. And number two, of course, is you have to do work that is meaningful. You have to give the work that basically people will take pride in, that people can say like, I was part of that work. And that is just the best work of your life. That's very, very important. And third is career growth. Like when people join your company, you have to make sure that they grow over the period of time. The reason why they're taking bet, they're joining a startup, is that the career growth that they can get here in 5 years is equivalent to the career growth that they might get somewhere else in 15 years. And that basically means the people who are ambitious, people who are really working hard and producing the work, don't look at their experience. Like once you have joined Instabase, we have tech leads that have like maybe industry experience of less than 4 years, and who are managing people who might have industry experience more than 10 years. And we have that. And the reason why is because they have proved that they are capable. And we've just done so much internal promotions, which basically gives a clear path for people to grow, which is helped us significantly. And just to give you in more like numerical sense or more data metric sense, at Instabase, this is 5 years, only one in engineering, in the core engineering, only one person has left in 5 years to join some other company. Every time else, either somebody has left to start their own, like 1 or 2 people, or we have let go because performance reasons. So just having only one person leave in 5 years to join some other company is just significant. It's very, very hard to get somebody out of it. Like basically, it's very, very hard for any other company to get someone leave Instabase and join them. This has only happened once, and even that person had expressed interest in coming back. So that's the stats on Instabase engineering.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you make it a great place to work, right? So I suppose that's always the goal. Moving on. Okay, this is a fun question. If you could go back in time to 5 years ago, when you were just starting out Instabase, when it was Data Hub, and you could change a single thing so that Instabase would be different today, what do you think that thing would be?
I wouldn't change a whole lot of things. So the point, I think today I just know a lot more about what is the right thing to do. But given the same information, if I have the same information at a particular point in time, I would still do the same way. And the reason why is, I think, yeah, today I can say I could have done this, but the reason why I didn't do that is because I did not have those information. I did not have that context. And that's why, you don't have ability to see the future, because if you knew everything that would happen in future, you would do things differently. But if you didn't have the knowledge of future, you have to basically make decisions based on the information that you have at that particular point in time. So I
Right.
think I would do the same way. At the same time, I think I would be slightly more aggressive for sure. If in spending money, if I knew like how cheap the money is in terms of the in terms of like investment. So
Mhm.
for example, like I would just do more experiments. I would be totally fine like throwing 5 million and doing some experiments, even if that would completely fail. Earlier, I was like more conservative, like profitability is more important, or getting like, sort of everything to work. Stability is more important. I would have just taken more bet if I knew that it's much easier to get money in Silicon Valley or in United States in general. Um, but apart from that, I think I would do the same thing, given the kind of information that I had.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, moving on. So we just talked about your past view, but now I would like to talk a little bit more about your future view. So where do you see Instabase 10 years from now, particularly in regards to your customers or how it's being used in other companies?
I'll talk about the North Star, like what we consider successful, and not even 10 years, but 5 years down the line. And that is, if you go to like, let's say, Y Combinator today, and if you look at anybody who's building phone app or anybody who's building sort of desktop app, for all the phone app, it's built on iOS and Android. That's the two key operating systems you target. When you're
Right.
building desktop, it's primarily web. What I want is, if anybody builds like if anybody builds business app, that would be on Instabase. That's where we want to go. So the success 10 years down the line is, if you go to the Y Combinator class of like 2020, if anybody is thinking of building business application, are they all being built on Instabase? That's where we want to be. Apart from that, I mean, this has a bunch of preconditions, and preconditions is having distribution, having customers, and all those. But the true north star is, whenever anybody think of building business application, are they thinking of building that on Instabase? That's the real win. Because once you win that, you are the default app ecosystem. Once you're default app ecosystem, that basically sort of defines the sort of like few decades of how people consume computing, which is the ultimate goal that we have.
See. Okay, all right. And that actually leads very well into my next question because you are already working towards that goal, clearly. But in order to get there, there are a lot of customers that you have, and you also have to make sure you're satisfying their expectations, which may very well be different from your own North Star, kind of, or it may divert a little bit. So, how do you kind of balance customer expectations for your product with the own vision that you have and the direction that you yourself want to go or your company wants to go?
Yeah, it's a constant tension. I mean, like basically sort of balancing between the short term and the long term. This is a constant tension, and you have to deal with that every single day. Because if you go in direction the customers pull you in, you might become very good at that one thing, but you lose the longer sort of like vision that you have.
Exactly.
And it's just that like, always asking this question is like, is this the right thing to do for the company? Is this the thing that basically moves the company in the direction in which we want to move?
Hmm.
And I think one of our values is customer obsession, which and this is at Instabase we define what it does not mean rather than what it means. So we write like, when we say customer obsession, that does not mean believing that customer is always right. So like when we say we are customer obsessed, we also say that we do not believe customer is always right. When we say customer obsession, we also mean that we do not do things that customers ask us to do. When we say customer obsession, we also say that we do not commit to the timelines, deliverables, and the milestones that customers expect us to hit. And this is kind of weird because you say like, what do you even mean when
Yeah,
you say customer
what does it mean, right?
obsession? So basically, we define for Instabase the customer obsession means doing things that is in the customer's best interest, which might not be always what they want. It is basically taking a long-term view on customer success. Like if you're a product manager and you said, I prioritize every single feature that customers ask us to do, that is not customer obsession. We are going to look at the end, did you do the things that return the huge amount of ROI for them? Did you do things that basically made them successful? Because customers are, while they have problems, they're not very good in solving them. And that's why they're buying these products. So
Right, right.
listening to what the solutions should be is a bad idea. So, and basically this approach allows us to balance, because now when we look at this problem, we are not trying to just solve immediate customer need. We are basically looking at what the success looks like for the customer and how did this fit into our overall roadmap. And sometimes we'll forego sort of short-term economics and to make customers successful, even if it goes against our strategic, like long-term point of view. But we will not do everything that customers ask us to do. So that allows like every single engineer or every single product manager or every single technical account manager of Instabase to make their own judgment that basically forces them to think. Because we don't say like, hey, you have to listen to everything customers say. Since we've removed all that requirement as part of customer obsession, now if you hire smart people and they can really sort of like understand what is the long-term success looks like, which is balanced and aligned with both what customers need as well as what our strategic roadmaps are, then they move in the right direction.
That's brilliant. Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like customers, rather than just telling you what they want or what their solution is, they tell you about their problems, and you and your team come up with that solution in your own way and ship that to customers.
Exactly, and we will disagree with the customers if the need be. There are times,
Okay.
in fact, there are times when we will just simply say like, "Hey, look, this is not the right way. This is not," and here are the reasons. And customers in general, as long as you can make them successful, they are
Mhm.
aligned with that.
Right. Right.
So just being very clear and very direct is very important. And you have to empower every single individual within the company that they can make that decision.
Mhm.
Because if you punish somebody for not listening to customer, then you move into too much optimization for short term, which
Right.
is not the right thing to do. And so you literally define like what customer obsession means, what it does not mean. And as long as you put those things, it sets the mindset in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes great sense. All right, moving on. This next question is kind of addressed towards our hackers directly. I mean, towards you, but about them directly. What advice do you have for people who are at this event? They are young hackers, they're college students, and they're seeing you and they're like, "Holy crap, I want to beat that guy." What advice do you have for people that are looking to beat the next Anant Purdwaj?
Yeah, I don't think being next on Bhardwaj is the right investment or the right thing. Like you can do much better, and I would basically just recommend. I think you can just do much better than I did things based on my constraints, and I think at the end things are much easier than you think. So like a lot of people think, is it too hard to raise money? Is it too hard to do a company? It's not. You just have to do it. And there is always some fear and uncertainty when you basically think about these things. But actually, when you do it, it's like it's being done by people who are who are no smarter than you.
Right.
But the point is, if you commit to it, you can do it. It just requires courage. And by courage, I mean you should be willing to deal with uncertainty. It doesn't require technical skills. It doesn't require like of course you need to have some point of view and you should be able to hack something, but you can hire great people. So as long as you have a very clear vision, like when I was at MIT, I dropped out first and then moved to the valley rather than trying to basically raise money and then drop out, because then you get into safety zone, you get into the comfort zone. uh, so have a take a leap of faith on yourself, and it pays off. So I dropped out first, moved here. I was like, look, now I don't have. There's no going back now. I have to do it, right? So there's just no choice. And once you have left yourself with no choice, you just do all the right things. You can take those decisions that earlier you couldn't take because it's too hard. Most times, the reason why people fail is not because they were not smart or they didn't have the abilities or things like that. It's just more about they did not have the courage to deal with when the things got uncertain. Because you have to deal with a lot of uncertainties because you don't know what tomorrow would look like. And as long as you can take that leap of faith and there's just everything is so much easy, right? Like if you come to Valley, there is so much money out there that as long as you have some decent idea that can produce some good amount of return on money, investors will invest. That's what that's what they are in the business for. In fact, like
Right.
today, where do you even deploy the money? The interest rate has gone to zero. The stock market, like that's why you see public stock market valuations going up because there is not a
Yeah.
good company that you can put in the private market. So like there is just so much money out there, and there are not enough good companies. There are not enough good companies that can give the huge return. So like fundraising is one of the easiest thing that basically people think that it's very hard, especially those who haven't done it. Like I'll give you this example, which is like people are like, hey, should I raise like 500K or 3.5 million? It doesn't matter. Like for an investor, it doesn't matter whether they're giving you 500K or 3.5 million or 5 million or even 10 million. For them, the difference between 500K or 10 million is negligible. And
Mhm.
the reason why they don't care whether they spend 500K or 10 million for this company, they only care about is whether this company will become 10 billion. Like if this company is 10 billion, let's say they own like 15% of the company, that's like 1.5 billion.
Mhm.
1.5 billion minus 10 million or minus 500K doesn't make any difference. It's still 1.4 billion, 1.49, whatever, 1.4 some billion that they will make it again. So what they care about is whether this company will become $10 billion or not. Because if that answer is true, it doesn't matter whether they have to invest 500K or 3 million or 5 million or 10 million, because that's what moves the needle. So having that sort of like understanding that how VC market operates and having the courage to ask for things you need. You just need a good idea, a company that has vision, a company that can generate a good amount of return. That's all you need. You should have. Just come up with good ideas. It's totally fine. Ideas could be plastic. You don't need to know everything. As long as you have the courage to do it, it will be hard. Look, there will be time when you'll feel like everything is against you, but if you persevere, you will be successful.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much. We do have one really fun viewer question that I want to ask with the couple minutes we have left.
Yeah.
Um, one of the have you seen the show Silicon Valley?
No, I haven't.
You have not? Oh no, that's a shame. Okay, well, I was going to ask you if it's the same, if the real thing is the same as the show. But in that case, we can just go to our other viewer question. Somebody asks, you mentioned hiring earlier and your very high hiring standards. Can you talk very briefly about your hiring bars and what you're looking for in interns or full timers?
Yeah. So basically, the hiring bot high doesn't mean ask difficult questions or any of those things. Hiring bot basically means having a set of processes that allows you to sort of like put the check marks at various points in time. So the way we do that is I'll talk about, let's say, full time, because full time is a lot more important. That defines the company. Interns, like since you get to work with them 3 months, it gives you a lot more data point. So we go through the two standard like phone screen in general. So there are two people who will be taking two different signals, and primarily the signal says, what is the person's coding style? Can they write code in a proper way? Modularization, functional decomposition, those kind of things. Second one is algorithmically. Can somebody translate a real world problem into some algorithmic sort of solution where they can solve it? So the two aspects that basically tested in two phone screens. Once you basically do really, really good, those two need to basically, if both say yes, that's great. If both say no, that's great. If one say yes or no, likely we tend to go towards no, unless like it's basically there are other signals that say that's why we should still take it back. Then we have like about four sort of the on-site interviews. And typically we'll test on four different things, depending upon whether the person is in systems or person is in ML. If the person is more system, then we'll go into the architecture and all that. So once all of that is done, then there is a debrief that happens among all the interviewers who basically decide and where they talk about like all the comments and notes, and they make a decision whether the person should be hired or not. And then basically they make a decision. Then it goes through one value interviews where you look for does the person care about excellence, all of those things, where they will try to get into the soft skills. Once they all say yes, then it comes to me with a packet. There is a big packet that here is like 7 or 8 people that they have talked to, and then sort of like here is the result. And at this point also, when everybody has said yes, our rejection rate is about 40%. And the reason why it comes to me is because when every team is interviewing or something, they have a really good understanding of the local like bar, which is what is the bar for this team or what is the bar of that team because of the panel, or what is the bar within engineering, but they don't know what is the bar in product or what is the bar in sales. So when it comes to me, since I have the global understanding, at that point I ask this question: does hiring this person increases the bar of our engineering team? Because I have seen every single hire, right, of the last 4 years at this particular level or no? And if the answer is no, even if everything is yes, we will still reject. So just passing interview is not enough. It's basically, is it above our median bar or not? So with every single hire, the goal is to move the median up.
Yeah, yeah.
So you might be still better than our lowest performer and we'll still reject, because our goal is that with every hire, is the median bar going up or not? And if the answer is not, we will reject. So you have to be better than the median to get accepted.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, I don't want to take up of your time. I know you're very busy. But thank you so much for speaking. Guys, make sure to check out Instabase's product demo at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be hearing from some of their engineers.